A family attempts to move on with their lives after the rage virus has been eliminated. Or has it? Join us as we chat about our favorite horror genres, The Lucky Scientists in Antarctica, and When My Wife Got Mad at Me for Something a Fictional Character Did. Then we see if 28 weeks later stands the test of time.
Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? James says gladiator with a glut. Alan says as a father, blah blah. It's the test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Test of Time. My name is Alan Noah, and my partner in killing zombies is you, James Brief.
That's right. I will kill any zombies you want, although this film doesn't technically call them zombies.
Infected, whatever. They're zombies.
Was this the first time you'd seen this film?
I think so. Nothing about it seemed familiar.
Okay. I've always been a fan of zombie films. Just as a default, I will like them. I'll see them if they're on. I was kind of going to go through some horror genres, and I'm just wondering your opinion on them.
Okay.
What do you think of vampires?
It's hard to generalize. I loved Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but I remember being bored by Bram Stoker's Dracula. I had no interest in Twilight.
I'm generally not interested in vampires by default, and maybe a really good one I could get into. But how about like slasher films?
No.
Generally for me, no, unless it's kind of like the Scream. I like that one. But how about, say, a haunted house ghost story?
Define that. You mean a demon monster that's haunting the halls and, jump scares and shit like that?
Yeah, 13 Ghosts, House on Haunted Hill, The Haunting.
I don't think I've seen any of those.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, it's basically your haunted house kind of thing where there's a ghost and they kill most of the party there one by one.
I would say I'm not a fan because I haven't seen a lot of those. I saw the recent Haunted Mansion movie from Disney. That was cute.
Not Eddie Murphy.
No, the new one. One of them was Haunted Mansion and one was The Haunted Mansion, I think, and I don't remember which was which.
Like Suicide Squad and The.
Exactly.
Big difference in quality. How about sci-fi horror? So something like Alien, arguably the first Terminator film.
Yeah, sure. Those are okay.
Yeah, I agree. I like the element that sci-fi adds to it. I think it's better than Supernatural. There's an element of, I guess, the Terminator's possible, and Alien films, I can't see why it's not possible.
Event Horizon, I saw that and it scared the ever-loving fuck out of me, and I hated it, and I never want to do it on the podcast. If we ever have a guest who forces us to, God help me. But I remember that one being a sci-fi horror movie that I really, really hated.
All right. How about true crime horror? Like real horror, these really happened, and that adds an element of terror to it.
Like that movie The Strangers that was inspired by true events, even though it was all fiction, but like people get murdered, so that was enough for them.
Right. Like, yeah, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was like fake based on real events. But the real ones that are a real murder that happened. Basically, any Lifetime television for women film.
No, not really my thing.
Not those. All right. Horror comedy.
Yes.
Shaun of the Dead.
I took my daughter to see Heart Eyes earlier this year, which was about a killer who has hard eyes on his mask, hence the name, and he kills couples that are in love on Valentine's Day. And it was so goddamn funny because it was making fun of rom-coms and all of those movies and those tropes, and I loved it. And there was a Totally Killer that hit Amazon Prime a couple years ago. It's basically if Back to the Future and Scream had a baby, you'd get that movie. I love that shit. M3gan, Megan, that movie is very, very funny. Yes, if I can laugh while being scared, I love it.
I think also psychological horror is isolation and The Shining. Is any of this real or not? Or am I just going insane from just being alone on a mountain?
The psychological ones that aren't just about killing, but are about real trauma and psychological torture. I hate those. I've watched a bunch of those with my daughter because she's into horror movies. I find them very, very disturbing. They get under my skin. They get in my head. There was Smile. There was Hereditary. There was one, it was based on a Stephen King book. It was new to Hulu within the past couple of years. I can't remember the name of it, but it was about like the demon only went after people who had experienced real trauma in their lives and had lost a loved one. Like, why? Why are you torturing these poor people? Like, I hate that. I really fucking hate that shit so much, and I just have no interest in any of that.
And neither do I have interest in the absolute extreme torture porn, this Terrifier, Art the Clown. Yeah, just not for me. I'd seen that movie Hostel, and I'm like, yeah, I'm just not interested in this.
Right. If it's so deeply uncomfortable to watch, then I'm not into it. We were going to watch that movie Thanksgiving, which is like I think an Eli Roth horror movie. We watched the trailer, and it was all torture porn, and I'm like, no. Just no, I don't want to see that. Even the trailer was so fucking disturbing, because then I'm thinking about the people who thought about these things and put them in a movie, and then I just get disturbed and nauseous, and I'm not interested in that. I guess I have a sensitive stomach for these things.
You know what I kind of like? I like some of the horror where people are in horrific situations. I saw a weird one, I think it was kind of these Netflix ones, where these two women were climbing one of these abandoned cell phone towers. It's like half a mile up or something. And as they go up, like some of the rungs like fall apart and they can't get down. And it's like very psychological. And there's a whole like 90-minute film about this. It takes a while, and then there's a little backstory between them. You find out something, blah, blah, blah. I like those situations.
But let's get into 28 Weeks Later. So, James, why don't you give our listeners a recap of what the movie is all about?
Sure. This movie is set, as you might guess, 28 weeks after the rage virus devastated Britain. By now, the infected have all starved to death, and the threat is believed to be over. The U.S. military is now leading an effort to repopulate a safe zone in London. Tammy and Andy, two kids who were in Spain during the outbreak, reunite in the safe zone with their father, Don. Don tells them that their mother, Alice, was killed when swarms of infected people attacked their safe house. But that's not true. Don ran away from Alice when their cabin was overrun, and he never saw her die. Well, she survived, and is a dormant carrier of the virus. When Don reunites with Alice and kisses her, he becomes infected, and chaos soon engulfs the so-called safe zone. Scarlett, a medical officer, realized that Alice's kids may be immune and the key to unlocking a cure for the virus, so she tries to keep them alive. She's killed by Don, who also infects Andy. Like his mom, Andy remains asymptomatic, and both kids are saved by Flynn, a helicopter pilot who brings them out of England. The film ends with a swarm of infected people seemingly running through Paris, indicating that the virus is now worldwide.
Or at least in Europe.
Right.
Okay, so this movie came out and must have done well enough for them to make a sequel, even if it's a legacy sequel. What is it now, 18 years later?
The budget for this one was $15 million, about double the first film. It came out on a big summer weekend. It came out on May 9th, 2007, and it opened at number 2 with $9.8 million. It only ended up with $28 million domestically and $65 million worldwide. So it was a much bigger investment, but it was a much lower return. Maybe people were seeing this film riding the coattails of the first film, and it didn't seem to have the legs that they were hoping for, because it didn't even really have a triple multiplier.
Gotcha.
So the film, I think over the last couple decades, has built a following. But if I had to guess, probably people talk about the first film more.
I think that's probably fair.
The film we reviewed last week, the first film in the franchise, 28 Days Later, that was directed by Danny Boyle. He did not come back for the sequel. He was involved in the production of it. He did direct much of the opening scene and a couple other little parts of the film. But this film was directed by Juan Carlos Fresnadillo.
And Alex Garland, who wrote the first movie, also did not write this one, although he apparently did some script doctoring and helping out along the way.
I didn't know that. The opening scene. This scene, in my opinion, is by far the best part of the film. I think it's a fantastic scene. This is basically a reimagining of the first film, whereas the opening scenes took place in London. This one just takes place in the countryside. This is happening concurrently while Cillian Murphy's Jim character is probably in a coma at this point, and they've secured themselves in a house with this very nice older couple. And unfortunately, when they open the door to help a young boy in, that compromises the security, and some zombies infected come in, and the entire house is overrun. The main character is played by Robert Carlyle. He is famous, of course, from Trainspotting, and by now he'd been an established actor. He'd been the bad guy, and I think he was in a James Bond film by now.
The Full Monty.
Full Monty. The thing that's incredibly memorable about this scene is a lot of these things are kind of what would you do?
Yeah.
There's the old man who holds the barn door shut so that his wife can get to safety. You hope that's what you'll do. You know, we never know what we'll do. There's the wife that you're kind of like, jump up to the ladder, but she doesn't want to leave her husband's side, and she winds up getting killed.
Right.
And then there's this little boy, and Robert Carlyle's wife, she takes it upon herself to kind of make sure that this boy, maybe 8 years old or so, is safe and protected. Robert Carlyle's getting him and his wife to safety. But when they get a little bit separated on different sides of the room, she calls out, "Don, help us." Not just Don, like my last call to my husband. No, help us. And what does he do? He shuts the door, thinking that if he helps him, he's dead anyway. And he winds up escaping. That last look at the mom, like banging on the window, he gets to look and see his cowardice with the music. And it's so good.
It's haunting. The way that Don is so okay with not opening the door, not helping this little kid, and the way that Alice is saying, no, we have to, because their kids are out there in the world. We don't know exactly where they are at this point, but she's thinking about it in a maternal, protective, instinctive kind of way, where if this was my kid, I would want someone else to take care of my kid. So that's what I'm going to do. And she does the right thing. And Don runs away and leaves his wife behind. It's the thing that you think you would never do that he does. And you can see it in his face. He knows that he's going to live with this shame for the rest of his life. Have you ever seen the movie Downhill, by any chance? It's a movie starring Will Ferrell and Julia Louis-Dreyfus, two very, very funny people.
Yes, I've heard about it.
Yeah, it's not that funny. I watched Downhill with Courtney, and never before or since has she gotten mad at me for the actions of a fictional character. It's similar. This isn't a spoiler. It happens early in the movie, but there's an avalanche. There's this family. Will Ferrell's the dad. Julia Louis-Dreyfus is the mom. And the avalanche is coming right at the family. And Will Ferrell just runs away. And then it turns out the whole family's fine. Everyone's okay. But then the entire rest of the movie is the fallout of that. And like Courtney was so mad. She's like, if you ever did that to me, I'd kill you. I'm like, right, I wouldn't. And she's like, if you did, God, I'm so mad at you, Alan. I'm like, I didn't do anything. This is a fictional character. What's happening right now? Why are we fighting about this?
You probably shouldn't have fist pumped as he was running away and go, yeah, leave them all. Save your ass. You could always get a second wife. You probably shouldn't have said that.
Right, not out loud.
Not out loud, yeah.
So I was thinking of that movie. I was thinking that just narratively, well, I bet Alice didn't die, because that's going to be the thing, is that he's going to tell his kids, oh, she died horribly, and then we'll find her again, which is what happened. And it was predictable, but whatever. The thing that I found kind of surprising about this new military presence, it's an American-led NATO force in London. 28 weeks is 7 months, give or take, and they're already repopulating England. And, honestly, after COVID, there was just such a push to, we've got to save the most important thing in the world, the economy. So I can believe it, but God, it just feels really dumb that they're on this Isle of Dogs that's not really an island. It's like a peninsula. It's a real place in England, mostly surrounded by water, and saying, this is where we're going to stay. Just don't leave here. And this is where it's safe and fine. I mean, obviously, it's a movie. I know there's going to be zombies coming eventually, but it's just like, is this the best idea?
Eventually, you have to be like, all right, I mean, we have not seen anything. Give it another month, right? Give it another month. All right, give it another month. And it's implied they probably sent an army. They've been there for a month and nothing's happened.
Right.
They've done their due diligence because they have to get that real estate. I mean, nobody owns 90% of England anymore. They're all dead. And yeah, capitalism, whatever. Also, there's a lot of land. Eventually you have to do something.
Yeah.
And I also can now believe that there will be an absolute colossal fuck up of this plan, because ultimately it's going to be one person that's going to come up with this plan. And if the person that's in charge of this happens to have this job because they wrote an editorial three years ago, on something unrelated, and someone says, put that person in charge of this, position, that's the guy that calls the shots.
I'm not arguing with anything you're saying. I just feel like, as you say the word eventually, 28 weeks later is not eventually enough. And I mean, the fact is, the military is making bad decisions. And that is a consistent theme throughout this movie. It's also a continuation from the first movie, where the military guys you think maybe are going to be the great salvation, and they're not. There's an idea of, oh, well, once the guys with guns show up, everything will be fine. And it's not. And I think that is done deliberately. It's set up early in this movie that these military guys have a plan. They have an idea of what to do. They think they're doing the right thing. But are they? Nowhere is that more evident than the Code Red, when everything goes to shit, when there are infected on the base, and their plan is to put all of the civilians in one concentrated area. Do they not know what happened 28 weeks before? It is so unbelievably stupid. And could the military be that stupid? Yes, I can believe it, but it's hard to watch that there's just so much incompetence, where this is the great hope. This is where England will be rebuilt. And yeah, this contingency plan was pretty fucking poorly thought out. Like, all of these people, they're living in high rises with doors that are closed. They're gonna be safer there than they will be all in one giant room, where, yeah, you get one infected person in there. Now you have 10,000 infected people in a matter of seconds. If they hadn't done that, if they had just sent the military guys with guns and face masks in after the infected, they might have been able to contain it. General Stone, Idris Elba's character, at one point says, "We've lost control." And it's like, yeah, did you ever have it?
Yeah, the moment I knew the plan was shit was when chaos starts happening. They say, only shoot the infected. This is not 4 weeks later with rotted corpses. How the fuck are you going to tell the screaming, panicking people from the screaming zombies?
Right, and then it's not at all shocking when he says, "We've lost control, shoot everybody," which not only is it horrific, but it's also pointless, because they're not going to be able to shoot everyone. They're going to have to firebomb everyone. And so if you assume that the firebomb and the poison gas and those things will work, which, there's no guarantee, but let's just say, fingers crossed, that does happen, then you will have soldiers who will have shot lots and lots of innocent people following orders, and they're going to have to live with that, even though they didn't have to. There was no point in shooting all of those innocent people when General Stone could just have to be the one living with the guilt of the order of firebombing.
If you're going to be in the first people going back to England in this plan, maybe they tell them, maybe they don't. But I think you do have to understand, yeah, if things go to shit, we're going to nuke London. And yet the idea of shoot everyone doesn't make sense. But yeah. Code Red, the entire city is being firebombed in 5 minutes. Like, that makes sense.
Right. I was thinking about it in terms of the time that had passed between 28 days later and 28 weeks later. So 28 days later, it was written pre 9/11. And then, 5 years go by before this movie is released. What happens in those 5 years? First off, the September 11th attacks, and then the aftermath, the war on terror, war in Afghanistan, Iraq. I wonder if some of that real world stuff bled into the script for this movie. Yeah, let's just be more critical of the military, specifically the American military. Yeah, they're going to tell you they've got a plan, they've got it all under control. But do they? And also, I don't think it's necessarily relevant only to the years from 2002 to 2007. I think it could just be a commentary on the military-industrial complex kind of in general. But I was wondering how much of real-world politics and current events and military actions and war around the world played into this movie's critique of the military.
They definitely do go a little anti-military towards the end, because in the beginning they're the clear good guys, they're trying to help everyone out, but then when it becomes kill everyone, then they're the faceless killers.
Sure, but I think the whole movie is anti-military because they position themselves as the heroes at the beginning, and it so quickly falls to shit. Kind of going back to what I said last week about those guys at the military blockade that I maintain were not career military men who had, been in the army for years or decades or whatever before this, and they're good at a zombie apocalypse for about a month, and that's it. These guys in this movie, Idris Elba and Jeremy Renner and Harold Perrineau, these guys are real military dudes. These are tried and true. They're the red, white, and blue. Not like those British pansies in the first movie. And they definitely are more confident. They definitely have more weaponry. But are they more competent? This movie clearly says, nope, not really.
The military is famous that there's this expression that they're always fighting the previous war. Like, we now are stocked to real kick ass. If World War II Nazis come back, we're going to kick their fucking ass. And
I've got bad news for you.
Yeah, there's such stupid decisions, but I do believe that whatever this repopulation force was, somebody was making bank on it.
Oh, for sure.
Or I never would have thought of that in 2007 when this film came out, though.
Right.
Now I'm convinced of it.
It's easy to look at it in that context post-COVID, because when there's money to be made or money that's being lost, that is definitely going to be a factor. And it's going to be a factor that's, quite frankly, more important than the potential loss of human life.
Right.
We saw it 4 or 5 years ago.
I kind of thought it was interesting that there is a tiny segment of the population, like there really is a segment of the population that is immune to the HIV virus. I do believe that there would emerge somebody, and it would take 28 weeks later. I do appreciate that they had that in the film. I do appreciate that at the end of the film, they have not extracted either of these children's blood to cure someone else. If there is going to be some cure for these kids, it's going to take, like the COVID vaccine, it'll be quick, but it won't be like one guy in a lab that is able to get a Earl amount of flask and is able to synthesize something right away.
Right. I agree. I like the idea of Alice as an asymptomatic carrier. Like, oh, that's pretty interesting. And she's her. She knows that it's her kids when she's reunited with her kids. And she wants to hug her son, but she just hugs him too tight. The rage is there, but, she's fine. But is she? The reunion with her and Don was honestly a little rushed. I thought that scene could have gone on just a little bit longer. I think Don should have had to go through it a little bit more. He kind of gets off easy. I mean, he kisses Alice after he apologizes. It's not really clear that she's forgiven him or that she wants him to kiss her. She's strapped to a bed. So, he just takes it upon himself to be like, I guess we're good now. I'll give you a kiss and we'll make up. Obviously, that's a dumb thing to do because she's infected. When he gets infected, he kills her. That moment is brutal. Watching her punch his wife while she's strapped to a bed. He does the same eye gouging movie that made my skin crawl in the first movie. It's way worse here. I hated it last time, and I hate it even more now. Like, why? Why would that be the way to kill her, not that anyway would be good, but it's just, it's awful. I fucking hated that.
I didn't mind it. That part. I mean, he's the rage zombie now. I agree with you 100%. He should have had to face a little bit more of a awkward
right
situation there. He immediately goes into honey, so glad you're alive, and yeah, he never gets a little bit of his comeuppance.
He does have to answer to his kids. And
yes.
They grill him and they call him out on the fact that you lied. You said she died. Well, I didn't say that I watched her die. I just very heavily implied it.
But right after Robert Carlyle's character Don kills his wife, that should be the end of this character. Yeah, okay, he has to be the one that infects everyone, sure. I mean, he has to run out to the crowd. But he's a recurring zombie. And not only recurring zombie, he's the recurring zombie that confronts the kids at the end.
Yeah.
I thought that was weak writing. I don't think there's any reason that it makes it even any worse that the dad attacks them. I think it's only worse the opposite way. If the kid would have to kill their dad, I think that's a much bigger moral dilemma.
Well, that's what happened.
Yes, but I don't think it's interesting that the dad is still around. That much later, or kill him early on, that the kids have to do that quickly. I just think it's silly that he survives all of this and then he finds them at the end.
I get what you're saying. It's a little on the nose. It feels like they're just stretching that out for the family drama aspect of it, which I get from the storytelling point of view, that he should be the one who bites the kid, and then, we find out that he is an asymptomatic carrier, and then the daughter has to kill her dad, and it's this horrible tragedy with the family. The thing is, though, that to put all of that in there, what you sacrifice is realism. That this one zombie is the zombie that keeps finding these kids over and over and over again. Come on. The movie, I think, kind of like its predecessor, is trying to have some semblance of reality, even though it's a zombie movie, where this is what the military would do. The military would do this horrible thing about killing all the civilians. And so, yeah, having it just be this one fucking dead dude who keeps popping up, it hurts the realism, for sure.
There is this character, the helicopter pilot, Flynn, played by, how do you pronounce his last name?
I would guess Harold Perrineau.
So Harold Perrineau. He wants to rescue his buddy Doyle. He doesn't know that there's going to be the other people with Doyle. And he's like, I can't take anyone else. And it's Rose Byrne, two little kids, and this other random guy.
Yeah.
Everyone throw off your clothes or throw a seat out. It just seems like, really, that's the difference between this helicopter crashing and not? I didn't really believe that. I thought that was another lazy thing, or just, bring a different helicopter. It's a one-seater. This is just not meant, it's not a rescue chopper.
Yes, that is a weird thing to draw the line there. Also, the U.S. military just killed a whole lot of innocent civilians. If you can save a couple lives, hey man, go for it. That's just good fucking karma right there.
Yes, but I love that part when Flynn, the helicopter pilot, when he's able to take out that whole field of zombies. That is so cool. He basically tilts the helicopter forward and just takes out the whole field with the propeller. I thought that was so sick and so cool.
Of course you did.
I do believe that a military pilot could do that. I absolutely believe that. It was an over-the-top kind of Michael Bay kind of scene right there.
Yes.
I just thought it was something like, all right, let's see something neat.
Again, hurting the movie's realism. That feels, like something from a Michael Bay movie where it does just kind of make you roll your eyes. I get it. Sure, maybe it would work. Also, you're spreading all of this infected blood every fucking where.
That's the part I was thinking. Would it create a red cloud of water vapor of just bits? And yes, I think someone would get infected. But
yeah,
I did think that scene was cool. They do mention there's kids here and they're very important. Does he say that they're important for the cure or something? Or does he say they're important because by the time they're rescued in the helicopter, Rose and Doyle are both dead. So these are
Scarlet. Played by Rose Byrne.
Sorry, Rose Byrne, Scarlett. They're both dead and sacrificed themselves, a noble way you do for these kids. And also not just for the kids, this is for humanity.
Right.
Because the kids are more important than either of them. And I like that Scarlett recognizes that. But nobody else knows about that. I guess it's kind of a tragedy, but really, why would Flynn really rescue these kids?
At the very, very end, when they're in the stadium? Well, because now there's 2 kids.
I know, but I still, it's like... Nobody's mentioned, these kids are the secret to the cure. Maybe get these kids. Oh, I guess he does say get them across the channel.
Yeah. Scarlett tells Doyle and Doyle tells him enough. I don't know that he gets the full story. Going back to Scarlett, though, she's gotta be a doctor. If not a medical doctor, at least a PhD. And she is never once referred to as doctor. Which, I mean, small detail, whatever. But I feel like someone should have given her that respect.
I could be wrong, but I think doctors are referred to by their rank in the military. I don't think they call them doctor.
Okay, fine. Also, a thing that I can buy now is that she's the smartest fucking person in the room. She understands the science of the virus and the potential cure and everything else, and everyone just ignores her. Yeah, after COVID, I absolutely can believe that would happen. But let's talk about the ending of the movie, where after Flynn rescues these kids, you think that, first off, just great that they're alive, and that some French scientist is going to be able to take this kid's blood, study it, and eventually develop a vaccine. But the last shot of the movie is these zombies running towards the Eiffel Tower, and you realize that something bad must have happened with this kid, and the virus gets out in France, and then presumably all of Europe and Asia and Africa are now fucked.
Right. I mean, it's pretty obvious what happened. I mean, the boy gets infected. You see that from his dad, right? I think his dad fights him.
But he's a carrier.
But he's a carrier. So at some point, he drinks a glass of water. And then they drink from the glass of water, and one single rage virus ggets into that guy.
No, I don't think that's it. I think he's a good-looking kid, and eventually he finds a girl that he makes out with. Just like what happened with his parents.
Right. After the trauma of what he just saw, he's trying to find some tail, I guess.
We don't know how long it is. There's no text on screen that says 28 days later, 28 weeks later. It could be a couple of years later for all we know.
It doesn't say 28 days later?
Maybe, you know what? I think it does. Yeah, you're right. Okay, fine.
So it's 28 days after 28 weeks later. So it's actually now 32 weeks later.
Correct. But I mean, what a fucking bummer of an ending. I'm not saying that I'm mad about it, but it's a gut punch of an ending. It's really fucking depressing. I was reading that was a last minute addition. The movie was just going to end with the helicopter taking off, and then the director and the screenwriter had this idea, and they filmed it really quickly, and they threw it together right before the movie was going to premiere. And I mean, that is bleak, man. That is fucking bleak. As bad as it was for all of England to be destroyed, now for, Europe and Asia and Africa to be annihilated. From an American point of view, I think we're still safe. Australia, New Zealand, the 15 scientists that live in Antarctica, they're good. But 3 continents worth of people, when saving this kid was the point of most of this movie, to save humanity, and oops, no, it's going to lead to billions of deaths.
I was kind of bummed by the last scene, but I remember thinking, cool, obvious 28 months later. I mean, this is the obvious opening, or 28 years later, whatever they want to call the sequel in a couple of years. It works well as a part 2 of a longer story, but to just end like that. And then, for 20 years, there was no sequel to this. So I always kind of was like, does it really happen? Is it kind of maybe a fever dream? It's a little, I guess we have to assume it's real. But I like that at least the fact that 28 years later is existing. I know nothing about the film. It probably implies that at least whatever happened at the end of 28 weeks later, there are humans at the end of this.
Right. Also, though, that scene annoys me a bit because it is setting up a sequel. And I like the way that 28 Days Later ends because it does not inherently set up a sequel. And for this movie to exist, The writers needed to think creatively about how to bring the virus back. You could make the argument that the ending of 28 Days Later does not stand the test of time because it does not set up a sequel.
From a Hollywood executive's point of view, you're right.
Exactly. Now, anything that could be a franchise, even if it's not guaranteed, but you think maybe, fingers crossed, there's going to be a scene that will set up the next one. And I like the fact that for 28 Weeks Later, they were kind of written into a corner from the end of the previous movie, and they had to write their way out of it. That is just the thing that I like. That's the challenge of writing. And when you can crack that, when you can figure that out, it's amazing. And I think this movie did it in a clever way. 28 Weeks Later, I mean. But yeah, with this scene at the end, it does very easily set the stage for 28 Years Later, which, by the way, is supposed to be a trilogy. They want to make 3 28 Years Later movies. Obviously, there's already one that's out now. The next one they filmed concurrently with that one, and if this one does well, the next one does well, then they will make a third.
Right, I saw that because I was looking up some of the credits of Danny Boyle, and I did see something that was like in 2026, and I was like, in production. Well, I guess that brings us to the end. 28 Weeks Later, what do you think of this film? We both enjoyed the film last week. Both said 28 Days Later stood the test of time. What do you think this week?
So one of the things that I really liked about 28 Days Later was that it showed the absolute worst of humanity, but also the absolute best of humanity. In this movie, 28 Weeks Later, you only have the bad stuff. There is no joy in this movie. Maybe the closest thing you get is a little bit of happiness in that first scene when they're in the cabin, the quiet little moment between Don and Alice. They're worried about their kids, but hey, don't worry, they'll be okay. And that's it. The rest of this movie is just bleak and terrible and awful and depressing, and there's no joy, there's no happiness. I mean, like Flynn makes some joke to Doyle about, oh, I was sleeping, I was dreaming of my wife. Oh, I was dreaming of your wife too. Ha ha ha. Okay, that's not that funny. I guess you could make the argument that like the good of humanity is the fact that they're rebuilding London. Cool, neat, whatever, but so much of that's off screen. You know, that's not like a thing of the movie. For me, that makes the movie less enjoyable. I would like to see some optimism and some joy and some happiness mixed in. And the worldview of this movie is a lot darker than the first movie. But I have to say, from a test of time perspective, watching this movie post-COVID, I kind of understand the shitty outlook. I understand that worldview. It's depressing as fuck. It's horrifying, but do I believe that all of these terrible decisions could be made? Yeah, I do. I really do. Unfortunately, maybe that's my own pessimism and cynicism creeping through, but I think the movie itself and the themes, they do stand the test of time. I don't think I ever want to watch this movie again. Like we were talking about the kinds of horror movies that we like and don't like at the beginning of the episode. This is the kind of movie that, yeah, it's not for me. I don't get enjoyment out of it, but it's a well-crafted story. It's a well-crafted follow-up to 28 Days Later. I hate that it's so bleak, but I think it does ultimately stand the test of time. What do you think, James?
You nail the faults of this film. The best parts of a zombie film is the fact that the zombies are not necessarily the biggest monsters in the film.
Right.
This film, it's fine. I don't think it's a great film. I don't think it's really saying much. I really liked Idris Elba's character because he seemed to be one of those guys really on the ball. I thought he was going to get killed accidentally. We don't find out what happens to his character, do we?
No. It's weird that he's playing an American in England.
British, yeah. I completely agree with you as well. I think the film also got lucky in that I've lived through the Iraq, Afghanistan wars and COVID. And each of those had big fuck-ups that were made just by stupid decisions. Had we reviewed this in 2013, I might have said, it wasn't as good as the first one. Not a great zombie film. A couple things did elevate me that watching it now was kind of almost like, I unfortunately do think they could have done this dumb.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, I find it interesting. And I will say it stands the test of time. It is not as good a film as the first film, 28 Days Later, though.
Definitely not.
This is just more of a standard zombie film, in my opinion, which to me is okay. If you don't like zombie films, you could skip it. If you really like zombie films, I think you'll have a good 2 hours here. But I'm very much looking forward to 28 Years Later.
Go and see it and tell me how it is.
All right. I guess you will not be seeing it.
I mean, I'm unlikely to see it in the theater, but I might watch it at home when it hits Paramount Plus or whatever.
Okay.
But that's going to do it for us this week. Next Friday is the 4th of July.
Are we going to do a fun movie like, in the Independence Day genre? It's going to be rah, rah, America.
Yeah, I got bad news for you. We are going to watch Born on the 4th of July.
Ooh.
I've actually never seen this movie.
Me neither, but I already know it's not, uplifting Jerry Maguire, Tom Cruise.
Right. But whatever. I'm still looking forward to that episode. In the meantime, write to us. We are at Test of Time Pod on Facebook, X, Instagram, and Threads. You can send us an email, thetestoftimepodcast@gmail.com. Check out our new merch store. You can find the link at testoftimepod.com. Get yourself a summer Test of Time tee or tank top or something that doesn't start with T for whatever reason. And we'll see you next time, everybody.
Bye.